All right. Let's dive in today's topic. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Okay, just need to set this up so that I can see you guys comment because, I haven't figured out how to do it the other way. And this is easy. All right. If you've been here for a while, you know what to do. You know that you head to the comments and let me know that you're here. And I always like knowing like who's here live with me. Am I talking to myself or am I talking to people in their offices, in their homes, or wherever you are? So let me know if you're here in the comments. And oh, Sharon says hello, hello, hello. And if you're here catching the replay, you could also just drop into the comments and let me know that you're here because I really like just knowing who the imperfect action takers are in the group. It's kind of like this like Morse code or the signal that comes down and says, I got some imperfect action takers. And sometimes when I DM you, and you tell me that you've been watching and things have been helpful, I'm actually a little bit surprised because I don't get to hear from you inside the group. So one, I love that you do respond to me when I do message you because I love celebrating it with you or helping you through some of the struggles as well. But also, it just makes me feel like, hey, I'm not doing this for nobody. I'm doing this for somebody. You guys are listening and you guys are applying some of the strategies and taking imperfect action. Valley says, hey, hi, I'm here. Okay, so today what we're talking about is poor gut health and the role that plays on weight loss and muscle building. Now, before we start into today's topic, I do want to say that there have been a couple of other ones. So we just did one with the naturopathic doctor on menopause and bloat. There is an older one in the guide section too on digestion. We did with her as well. And so you might want to like this one might be a good complement to some of those other previous trainings. And so if you can't find them, you can certainly just DM me or you can head to the comments and be like, where are those? But you do have a guide tab at the top, and then the most recent trainings are pinned to the top or featured at the top, as well as if you're a part of the email list, then I do provide you with a link to the trainings every Friday as well, and then provide you a recap of recent trainings too. So this is a good compliment because I had to make this one obviously different than the other ones, and so we're just looking at it not necessarily as digestion as a whole or digestion related to menopause. We're looking at it specifically how it relates to weight loss and muscle building. And I love that I'm talking about this because when women come to me and say that they've tried everything, generally they haven't tried anything that looks at their gut health or has that as a component of their approach. And we could say, well, if I eat healthy, then I get better gut health. That might be true, but as we get into today's training, that might not also be true. The other thing is that most women also aren't aware of the connection to muscle building or even just, how you feel in the gym or what have you. I just had a client too who just, ate a little bit more, ate different foods and drank a little bit more on the weekends. And, and we kind of talked about, okay, well, the body's priority right now is not weight loss like you want. It's actually clearing out inflammation, and that might take more days than you would like. And so, let's get walking and let's start thinking about clearing out, helping the body, clear out inflammation. And she says, got it. And then the next day she went to the gym and she's like, oh my, why was I sweating profusely? And why did that feel so much harder? And it actually happened in the gym this morning as well when somebody went out to a wedding and drank a little bit. And she was like, why am I sweating? And I was like, well, we're still detoxing, right? And so just a couple of things here. So I love that we're diving into this because I feel like it's a missing link for a lot of women, or for a lot of women who are good, this could be the next element that kind of pushes you to the next level as well. So before we kind of go into this, we need to look at, well, what is normal and healthy digestion or bowel movements? Do we even know what healthy is, right? Because I got to say, after coaching women for 15 years, we don't know. We know what's normal for us because this is how we've always been, but we don't actually know what normal comparative is. So we get kind of used to being regular or irregular or constipation or diarrhea or not going or IBS. So we don't kind of even know often there's another way of feeling, a way that makes you feel, better, keeps you energized. And often when we jump off a diet, do the shakes, eat the foods that are being prescribed, we aren't told about or kind of like seeing the connection to your gut and the very goal you were trying to get to, which is one, you're trying to lose weight, right? And keep that weight off. You're trying to get toned, but you're trying to feel pretty awesome in your body, right? And you're trying to feel energized as well. So we have to start off today by considering what is normal and what's not normal so we can see where we sit on the spectrum. I have to say, if you're doing all the things and it's not happening, you aren't losing weight. Of course, there are other considerations, including, patience, of course. Then, this might be the missing link. And after 15 years of coaching clients, I know that I'm often talking to women for the first time about digestion and how it's all connected. So the first place we want to go is talking about the frequency of bowel movements. Now, this is where, if you have the good old-fashioned pen and paper, hopefully not a dollar store pen, is that you're going to write this down so that you can then, maybe over the course of the week, or maybe you want a little bit longer, you can kind of assess, well, am I having normal poos? How many of these am I scoring, basically? And I'll give you a recap at the very end. But normal would be one time per day, or one every other day might be normal for some. For me, it's definitely one per day, but I do have some clients that go every other day, and that's certainly increased from their, not going for 3 days or not going for 4, or some of them are always doing like some sort of tea or some sort of like Restorelax or anything to kind of get it moving. What's not normal is 2 to 3 per week is constipation, and more than 3 times per day, something is not optimal. So it gives you kind of a range or a ballpark or a guideline of normal and not normal. Now, there are some exceptions to this. We might be normal versus it's something to worry about. So a diet phase or a low food equals, obviously if you're not taking in a lot of food, for example, there's less waste going out. It doesn't necessarily mean nothing's working or anything's working. You're training, so if, let's say you're an endurance athlete, you're training for a triathlon or whatever, your higher foods you might be going more. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong. Certain conditions, for example, hypothyroid often goes together with constipation. There's just like a slower transit time, basically. Keto or carnivore diets, they can decrease the stool frequency because there isn't a lot of fiber to help things moving along. Traveling, some of you, this was a big one for me to learn too, is when you travel, you just don't go as often, or you can't go, or in your public bathrooms you can't go. So sometimes it's more related to that than meaning that there's anything wrong, and anything obviously like food poisoning. Which, to tell you a little story with the Health Canada recall on the alternative milks, that was me going way too often to the bathroom and not being able to figure out what was going on until I learned that the milk was recalled. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So again, you want to make sure that you write down, okay, normal, one time per day or one every other day might be normal. Not normal is, 2 to 3 times a week or less. That's constipation, and more than 3 times per day, something is not optimal. Now that we have covered the frequency, we need to understand, is it chronic or acute? So acute might be because of, any of those things that I just kind of listed, but it can also be like a change in diet. So for example, let's say like you all of a sudden said, okay, I'm going to go on this high fiber kick, and you went from really low fiber to really high fiber really fast, for example, then that can just cause like, the changes in your, what your stool looks like, feels like, and the frequency of that. So it could just be the changes in your macros too, so if you're going to eating higher protein, higher fiber, nutrient imbalances. So you're just not getting in the right balance of protein, carbs, fats, and veg, which is generally what I see across the board when I'm coaching clients. and periods of not drinking enough water, periods of too much alcohol, because when you do drink alcohol, even though you have weight loss or fat loss goals, the body's priority is to clear out inflammation, not weight loss, not fat loss. And so that's what it's trying to do. So that's why you get the scoots or you get diarrhea or whatever, stinky farts, whatever that looks like when you drink alcohol. And more time spent eating foods you're more sensitive to. So you have a dairy intolerance, but you keep eating it, or you have that sort of thing, or a gluten intolerance, so you keep eating it. So chronic would be 3 months of constipation. We now know what that means because I just covered that. Or diarrhea longer than 1 to 2 weeks. Then we definitely need to get this kind of looked at. So sometimes things are acute and then they kind of resolve themselves, so it's not to fret. But sometimes it's like, hey, it's also a sign to you like, hey, something's out of balance. So for example, if you increase your fiber too big or too much at one time, or you didn't drink enough water, we have some easy kind of solutions to kind of fix it. But chronic is something that, hey, we definitely want to go get that looked at. And now that we know the frequency, we understand if it's chronic or acute, we need to look at gas, aka farts. We all do it, right? So now the research says that there is a level that is considered normal, but what we want to consider is the frequency. Are we tooting a lot, right? Even just from the scent can indicate something. You have a sulfur smell or a methane smell that can indicate different things. It can indicate, something's not working, and the presence of other symptoms. So you have bloating, stomach distension. That just means like your stomach kind of hardens or like swells up kind of thing, for example. So then we can look at other symptoms. We can look at acid reflux. Does it happen a lot? For most of my clients, this is generally resolved when we look at more balanced eating, and then we look at slow eating and mindful eating. They're not multitasking and distracting as well. So, okay, so we've looked at the frequency, we've looked at acute versus chronic, right? We've looked at, okay, those farts, right? And we were looking at acid reflux, and now we're looking at bloating. So often, how often is that happening? If it's happening a lot, and we don't have, it could be a sign we don't have a good digestive system. So this can include, again, that stomach distension. I guess a different way of like explaining it is like feeling or looking like you're pregnant, but you're not. And now sometimes all this happens as a one-off. You ate more veggies that day, a bigger meal, a smaller meal, at the end of the day versus the beginning of the day. And this goes back to, is it acute or chronic? So after coaching women for about 15 years, there are 4 common complaints. So the first one would obviously be bloating, because it impacts the way your clothes fit. If I'm feeling really bloated, I don't want to go get dressed and hang out with the girls, or I don't want to think about more food sometimes because it just doesn't feel good. And it can impede your progress too, right? So, you jump on the scale and you see this scale go up, but really has nothing to do with fat or weight gain. It has everything to do with you're bloated more, or you're taking those progress pictures and you're like, damn, I still don't have a flat stomach. I still look pregnant. The other thing would be constipation. And, obviously that affects, the way you feel when you're going on vacation or family functions or that sort of stuff, or even just your daily activities. It just doesn't feel good when you haven't moved stool out of your body, which, by the way, is storing toxins and storing hormones. And then diarrhea, well, I've been there, done that, and that never bodes well for having a good, fulfilling life. And then indigestion just makes everything feel really uncomfortable in your body. So those are generally the 4 complaints. Maybe those are resonating more with you. You can drop into the comments and let me know, but they're bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and indigestion. And you could include like acid reflux into the indigestion too. So there are 4 goals when it comes to digestion. So 1, motility is obviously like we want things to move out of our body. That's what we want. We don't want a storing of hormones, especially estrogen, as we get into perimenopause, menopause, and we don't want a storing of toxins either. And then so you need motility. You need to be able to move food through the tract. Digestion, the physical and chemical breakdown of food. And so that's always the argument on, is it calories in, calories out? And there's a school of thought, which is a pretty strong one, to say, well, no, it's about what you digest. So you could be eating really healthy and whole foods and clean, but you're not digesting it well because your body just doesn't break it down good enough. And then there's secretion and absorption, so the movement of food particles across the epithelial layer and into the GI tract and eventually into the bloodstream. So you want to make sure that the micronutrients and the macronutrients you're getting from food, the good things that are in the foods that you're eating, are actually getting to where they need to go and doing what they need to do. And then you have storage and elimination, right? Anything not used gets packed away until later, and the rest is kind of eliminated as waste. And there is a thought like you eat and then you go to the bathroom right away and that's what comes out. That is not true. Some of you will eat and you'll automatically go to the bathroom, or you'll have coffee and you'll automatically go to the bathroom. That's not necessarily what's moving through, because transit time takes a while. So when we don't have like normal digestion, then we want to look at those 4 areas. Is it a motility issue? Is it a digestion issue? Is it a secretion or absorption issue? Or is it a storage and elimination issue? And you're not really going to know, right? But all you're going to know is, I feel bloated, I'm constipated, I have diarrhea, or have indigestion, or like acid reflux, for example. But it'll fall into one of those 4 categories. Now, you and I might not know what the problem is when it comes to those 4 areas, like I said. All this is to say it's kind of like more layered than what we think. We think we eat and then we go to the bathroom right away, like I said. But food transit can actually take up to 34 to 36 hours before you end up in the bathroom. So if you eat and then you have to go to the bathroom right away, it's just what's coming out is the stool that's stored down there. It's not necessarily what you ate coming out, even though it might feel like that because you just ate, right? Or you just drank the coffee or whatever. So what's happening below the surface? So there's something called dysbiosis, and that's just kind of like just don't even remember that word. Just remember like an imbalance of gut bacteria that could be happening, and then that will make you feel more bloated or have more signs of bloating, especially after eating certain foods. You eat bread, you get really bloated, right? Generally, it's not the specific food unless we have a sensitivity to that food. It's that we have so much inflammation or so much of an imbalance in gut bacteria that it makes every food that we eat bother us. So you'll say, it's the bread, I need to stay away from bread, it makes me bloated. But unless you're sensitive to the bread, generally it's because your gut bacteria, your inflammation level is too high. And we're eating foods that are just adding to the inflammation. So if you could reduce the inflammation or figure out the gut bacteria, then those foods wouldn't bother you as much. So eating, this can happen after eating like certain carbs, or there's diets called FODMAPs you can look at too. And we just basically want to make sure that we're not feeding harmful bacteria or making the symptoms worse. And that can make it obviously harder to stick to a healthy diet and achieve your weight loss goals. And it can make you feel like you can't eat anything, right? And so if you're thinking, okay, well, what's the harm in thinking that you have gut bacteria, and then thinking about, well, I just got to change my diet and do all these things to help me with that. There's really no harm in kind of looking at it that way. So how do you find out? You could do a stool sample with your doctor, with your naturopath. There's private. That's what some of my clients do as well. When we bring on the naturopath onto our care team with clients. So you can do that. But generally, if you have certain symptoms will refer back to what's going on. So bloating, especially after certain foods, generally can relate to having a gut bacteria. So if that's resonating with you, then we want to address the gut bacteria. You could look at a diet like FODMAPs to kind of help you with that. There's permeability. So what this really means is like leaky gut. It means that, hey, your tract isn't woven like this, it's woven like this, and food can kind of get in there. That's basically what it means. And so usually you'll experience more inflammation and more food sensitivities with that one. So if that's resonating with you, you could look at, things like leaky gut and stuff like that. And so the impact is kind of a leaky gut allows toxins and undigested food particles into the bloodstream. And then that causes inflammation and makes it difficult to lose weight. But also you're eating healthy, or you're eating clean, or you're eating whole foods, but you're not absorbing all the nutrients from that. And you're like, like I'm doing everything and nothing's working, then we're looking at that. You could have low stomach acid, and the symptoms are, poor digestion, bloating, or nutritional deficiencies as well. And so that means that just like your food isn't being broken down, it's leading to nutrient deficiencies, digestive discomfort, and then again that can all hinder everything. And then motility is like, so that can range from like constipation or diarrhea. And then that means that you have like irregular bowel movements, and then that can cause a lot of discomfort and bloating. And this can make it, again, challenging to maintain a healthy diet. It can disrupt your weight loss, and it can end up with more toxins kind of built up and an imbalance of hormones, for example, excess estrogen. So if you're like, I need to balance out my hormones, it's very much related to digestion. If you're like, I need an anti-inflammatory diet, it's very much related to digestion. So though we understand kind of like to achieve weight loss, it is a matter of science, calories in, calories out, but we can start to see how your gut can skew the equation a bit, because we can get ourselves into a place of like the toxins just building up, hormonal imbalances, a slower metabolism, and then you not taking in the nutrients from our food, even though it's clean and it's healthy. Plus, we dig in a bit more into this training, we'll start to kind of see other connections as well. So what else can drive these digestive troubles? So, medications like antibiotics, that can change the gut microbiome. Here's a common one. It happens in like approaching menopause a lot, but a common one could be reoccurring UTIs. Could be related to gut health issues. So yeah, and antibiotics basically can change your gut microbiome, but can impair your digestion. Poor sleep. So good quality sleep can help with inflammation by having the body enter into that repair and restore cycle, which will also improve your energy. And so we've talked about this one in previous trainings, like if you're eating high sugar foods, or like what we call junk food or refined food before bed, that'll affect your sleep. Or if you're having a really heavy meal because maybe you just, you're a nighttime snacker, even if it's healthy or not, or you just eat your bigger meals at nighttime, for example, and then you're kind of going to bed in the next little bit, you're not getting into that restore and repair cycle that you need to in order to have really good digestion. But there's a catch-22. Poor sleep impacts negatively poor gut health and digestion, but poor gut health and digestion also impacts poor sleep. So it's basically like this cycle is like, hey, my nutrition, the way I'm eating, can impact my sleep. And when that impacts my sleep, then I don't have restore and repair, and that impacts my digestion. But also, poor gut health and digestion can impact your sleep, which means that you don't feel restful when you wake up. You're not getting that full rest and repair cycle as well. So it's like it's a catch-22 because it could go either way. And then high stress is when you have periods of high stress, then what that does is it lowers your stomach acid, and high caffeine too can lower your stomach acid too. I wanted to throw that in there because some of you say you start with 1 cup in the coffee, but when I look at your mug in the morning, it's like 2 to 3 cups, and you're having that reoccurring. So stress impairs that digestive function. If your body's chronically stressed and in fight or flight mode, it won't care about digestion. It just won't. Stress also depletes the acids in your stomach that you need to kind of break down your food as well. Training, the right dose is obviously really good. It's protective, it's good for you, but excessive training, particular over a longer period of time, or even longer workouts, can negatively impact your gut health. This is also made worse if we are like really restrictive in our like really big calorie deficit, and we're in that calorie deficit for too long. And with some clients, we need to kind of dial it back to allow the body to repair and recover. And this might mean, reducing the training volume, the intensity, or the frequency. And then there's other factors around eating too. So rushed eating, that increases malabsorption. And I would suggest you go back to the training we did with a naturopath, where we talk about, hey, digestion actually happens in your mouth and chewing with the saliva. Like I said, caffeine intake lowers your stomach acid. Chronic dieting can impair your thyroid, and thyroid, as we talked about, or hypothyroid or slower thyroid, even though you don't have a diagnosed condition, can slow down transit time. And eating the same foods all the time, so consuming a limited variety of foods, can lead to an imbalance in gut bacteria. Just think about that, and contribute to obviously nutritional deficiencies that affect the stomach acid, and then even just like gut motility. Your relationship with food, like a poor relationship with food, such as stress eating or restrictive dieting, can increase, that leaky gut. So getting food particles in and disrupt motility, your ability to move it through, and that can lead to more digestive issues. The other one that I see that's come up actually a lot lately is eating a lot of protein bars, protein shakes, protein chips, protein cookies. They're all processed. They're, so generally it's like an overconsumption of processed protein products that can contribute to an imbalance in the gut by feeding, it can feed harmful bacteria, even though you think you're doing a good thing and it's like, oh, this is good for you, I need to boost up my protein, right? It can increase gut permeability due to the artificial ingredients and the additives in the products as well, and may lead to like lower stomach acid, and they often kind of just lack the nutrients needed for optimal digestion. Like when I coach clients, we don't use any of that stuff. It's there if we need it, and we enjoy it, but it's not like an everyday or a necessary thing. So basically, like all that stuff, if we're eating too many of those things, that can contribute to the way we're feeling or what we're experiencing as well. And then we have an imbalanced fiber intake, insoluble to soluble. There's two different kinds of fibers. And this one has come up a lot in that carbonate bread. And so I've had two clients now who are like, I'm so bloated. I can't figure out why I'm bloated. And, we go through their diet, and it's because that carbonate bread just it's not the right type of fiber for you. And that's what causes the bloating or the gas or the constipation. So you need a mix of kind of both those fibers. Too many meals or snacks, and your body never gets that rest and digest. Likewise with how much, how late, and what you're eating before bed, like we talked about. So if you're like a grazer or a snacker and you're experiencing like digestive upset, then you're never getting into that rest and digest. So you might want to give yourself a period of time where you're just eating like your 3 meals, for example, and trying to limit your snacking so that your body can get into that state. If you're a late night snacker or a late night eater, for example, then you might want to look at that as a strategy as well. And as well, if you're eating higher volumes, like some women might have like a smaller breakfast, a smaller lunch, and then have a bigger breakfast, like their meat, potatoes, and their veg, because that's what they grew up with. And that can cause the digestive upset because it's just the volume of the food is just too much. And then obviously there's other conditions, right? IBD, Crohn's, colitis, celiac, IBS, GERD, reflux, or SIBO, H. pylori, candida, or skin conditions like eczema can also contribute to that. So when you're thinking about, okay, I have all these things and I'm like, how do I know and how do I fix this? Sure, you can go to the doctor and get your stool sample. No harm in that, right? You can get that all looked at. It doesn't test for everything, by the way. But you can also just look at, okay, well, I just listed off 6 different things that you might be doing that are contributing to that are free to you to try and like, okay, I'm going to work on this week. I'm going to work on this. And you're going to come back to this training and kind of layer in all those different ones. So we talked about medication. We talked about sleep. We talked about stress. We talked about training. We talked about rush eating, caffeine, chronic dieting, eating the same foods, your relationship with food, eating a lot of the processed stuff like the protein bars, protein shakes, protein chips, that sort of thing. Imbalance of fiber intake, too many snacks and meals, and your body doesn't get that rest and digest. And then we talked about some other conditions as well. So gut issues is not just about poor digestive health. It kind of extends. Like you think about these things all in like, you think of, like some women think about, okay, I just want to lose the muffin top or the belly because that's changing in menopause. And then we just look at isolated, and then we think, okay, I'm gonna do more planks and more sit-ups, more crunches and that sort of thing to get rid of it. But we're not seeing it as part of a larger system. It's the same thing too. Like I've had 2 clients in the recent who have knee pain, but they've never done anything to their knee. There's nothing there, but it's like, we're not looking, I'm looking at their picture and I'm like, well, your IT band is really, really tight, or you're walking more on the inside of your feet, not on the outside of your feet. We're not looking at it as part of a system and how the system is not working optimally. And so the same thing with the gut. You can just look at healing the gut, but we have to look at, okay, how it's kind of connected to these other parts. So the gut is connected to the brain. It's considered the second brain in your body as well. And so, you can get brain fog if your digestion is off. You can get a slower metabolism. You can feel like more anxious as well. And the gut also has more serotonin in it than any other part of the body. And so you can think about that's your feel good hormones as well. So if you're feeling more sad, more depression, depression is clearly linked with gut health as well. So your mental and emotional symptoms are also connected to that as well. Then your gut is also connected to your thyroid. Your thyroid is kind of like your thermostat. It kind of tells the body how many calories to burn, whether you're working out or not working out. And so a thyroid autoimmunity can be induced, made worse by dietary components, even eating a lot of foods, for example, eating a lot of foods that you're sensitive to. So like I said, like, you're sensitive to dairy, but you keep eating dairy. You're sensitive to gluten, but you keep doing it. You know that drinking a lot of alcohol causes you to feel bloated, causes you to feel lethargic, causes you to have diarrhea, but we still do it, right? Your gut and your metabolism is connected. So an unhealthy gut microbiome is associated with obesity, but also inflammation and also insulin resistance as well. And we already know, again, go back to that last training or the training before as well, where we talked about the connection between insulin and menopause as well, and then the gut and sleep. So, if we have a lot of intestinal inflammation, then we have more sleep disturbances. I could also go on to say, it's connected to joint pain as well. And you already know that it's connected to inflammation. So does it actually matter for fat loss or muscle growth? Well, yes, it does, for all the reasons kind of I mentioned, right? And it's more than just healthy food. It's more than, food driven, as we covered in today's training. On the food side of things, quality, yes, does matter, right? Your digestive system plays a crucial role in the absorption, the breakdown, the using of the nutrients. However, it's not just about the calories consumed. It's also about how effectively our body processes those calories. So a healthy gut ensures proper nutrient absorption, hormone regulation, which is very important, and the efficient elimination of waste, so that you're not getting a buildup of hormones, you're not getting a buildup of toxins, all of which contribute to a healthy weight. The same thing when it comes to muscle growth. And for some of you, you think, I don't want muscles, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, so let's talk about toning then. For muscle to happen, at a minimum, we need one, to lift heavy weights, so follow a progressive program, not random YouTube videos, or not constantly changing up the workouts, no. And then the other thing is we need to eat adequate protein. So we could be eating enough protein, prioritizing it, but if we don't have the optimal digestive system, then we won't be absorbing everything that we eat, right? And so that's where it feels like I'm doing everything and it's not working. Well, when you were in your 20s, you didn't really care about your digestive system. You really didn't notice those things. And if you did, you didn't see those two things connected, and your body worked differently. But now you're approaching, you're older, you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. All of this matters, and that's why you need a different approach. That's why going back to what you used to do doesn't work, right? So what can we do about it? So I'm going to give you this. Bristol, it's Bristol stool chart. You're going to want to hit a quick Google on that. And hey, it might be fun as a family to print it out and put it in your bathroom and see how everybody in your family is scrolling on the Bristol stool chart. So I suggest print it off, and I suggest keep track of your bowel movements. And that means looking. That's the first conversation I have with clients when they sign up, is we're talking about bowel movements. How frequent? Do they float? Do they sink? Are there food particles? Is it formed? Do you feel good after? Is it hard to pass? Those sorts of things. And we want to start tracking some of the quantitative and qualitative data, right? So, for example, and you can rate it on a scale of 5. So let me break it down. Print out the Bristol stool chart, okay, so that you have that. And then what I would want you to do is I'm going to give you a list of different things that you can track, and basically you're going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. So frequency of bowel movements, you're actually going to write down how often you went that day. Constipation, every time you have constipation, you can put a check mark. Yes, I was constipated today, or I had diarrhea today, but you're going to track it on a 1 to 5, like what's the level of it. Then you can look at indigestion or acid reflux as well. You could look at, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, did it happen today? On a scale of 1 to 5, what was the level that it was at? Or excessive burping after meals as well. You can do that too. Then there could be you're probably going to have to pause me and slow me down after this training to get all these down. But again, we can't go somewhere without having the data. Some of you say like, okay, well, I'm eating really healthy and I'm not eating a lot. But then I say, okay, well, how much are you actually eating? Give me the numbers. And you actually don't know because we're not tracking. Whatever gets tracked gets measured. And if we have a measurement, we can actually see if what we're thinking and believing is in line with the actual evidence. You would never have a detective solve a case based on, sure, they have a hunch, but they need the evidence to back it up. That's what you need to be. You need to be your best detective. So let me go through those again. So I'm not done yet. So frequency of bowel movements, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion and acid reflux, excessive burping after meals. Then you can do the feelings of excessive fullness with a small or normal sized meal. So it's not like you felt like you ate a big meal, but you feel excessively full after you ate it. Stomach distension, or like I said, kind of feeling and looking like you're pregnant after a meal. Yes, it happened today. On a scale of 1 to 5, what did it feel like? Then you could do foul smelling gas. So you can look at, how frequent was it? So yes, we're counting up some toots, but you can also, does it smell like, sulfur? Does it smell like more like methane? Like what's it smell like, right? You could do that, or just like, yeah, it just stunk basically. You could do stomach pain or burning after eating as well. That's separate from the pregnant feeling. It's actually like hunching you over stomach pain. Excessive water retention, or feeling like you're puffier after meals, but it doesn't necessarily have to be after meals. Is like you can track the days and the intensity of your puffiness in that day. You could do cognitive symptoms like, the days where you feel more anxious or more depressed after eating. It doesn't have to be a clinical diagnosis, but you just feel more anxious and more depressed. You could do brain fog. You could do skin issues. That could be acne. That could be hives or histamine kind of related. So anything like that. And you could also track not recovering from exercise if you're a frequent exerciser. You could look at sleep quality, so rated on a scale of 1 to 5, despite, getting to bed on time. And then you could rate your stress level on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, so that's a lot, but it's a great thing to then start to see, because like I gave you a bunch of solutions that you could start implementing for free. But if you did this for like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, you just kind of like devoted to tracking, then you could go back and grab the right kind of tool that you need out of those things that we talked about. You can grab the right one that addresses it, because you're like, oh, this is happening a lot. This is what I would like to start solving. So, the question you have to ask, is it worth exploring for you? Is this the missing link for you? You can give me a thumbs up, or you can give me a, yeah, I should try this out, right? Especially if you're always feeling bloated and pregnant. Let's do something about it. Let's collect the evidence here and then come back to the training and grab what you need. Currently fighting another UTI, if that's constantly, yes, it could be hormone related with you going through menopause or what have you, but also you could just do this kind of work as well to see if there's a connection between those two things. So it's worth starting with the chart, the Bristol stool chart, and then tracking, and then you're kind of equipped to kind of jump into the right kind of coaching or support. It's why all my coaching clients, we do like the gut protocol first, because it doesn't make sense to do everything else if we don't have the gut working properly. It's also why I always team up with a naturopathic doctor as well, because she can do the blood values and she could do the supplement side of things on her through her medical approach as well, that I can't do. Okay. So today's training was really about kind of keeping it simple from you. Like we had to go from bigger to and then narrow it down. It's kind of like Digestion 101, and getting you to see the connection and why what used to work no longer works, and why digestion has to be part of the equation, kind of moving you forward, particularly if you're heading into menopause or perimenopause. So consider these trainings as a glass of water. It only holds value if it's actually consumed, not when you just let the glass of water. This has no value if I just let it sit here. I actually have to drink it. And even though I drink it now, does it mean that I'll get maximum benefits of drinking the water? I have to drink it the rest of the day, and I have to drink it the next day and the next day and the next day. That's how I'm going to get the benefits of drinking the water, which, by the way, helps with motility. And so the key is to really just take imperfect yet consistent action. So that means that, hey, we got to do the work. I gave you lots of free tips here and free things that you can do. You just have to be the kind of person that's going to be committed to being the best detective you can be. And that can mean being imperfect, but being consistent. So we got to do the hard work in order to get to the bottom of it. And even though if you feel like you're not equipped to solve it, how great would it be to have all of that? You have the Bristol stool chart, you have all of that, and you're going to your healthcare provider, your naturopath, and you're saying, here you go, here's everything that you need. Like, how much further ahead would you be than the trial and error that you're currently doing, or the things that you're not doing, right? It's always about doing simple better. So if you find yourself needing support outside of this community and these trainings, reach out, because I coach women 40 plus to stop constantly dieting and know how to make empowered choices, be flexible versus all or nothing and perfect, and to really just get your freedom back and optimize obviously your hormones and your gut health too. So again, I always like knowing, one, if you're here. So if you haven't done that yet and you're listening to this, then head to the comments and let me know you're here. But also let me know, are you ready to start? Are you going to start with trial and error with any of those 6 points that I brought up? Or are you going to go head to the Google, go print out the Bristol stool chart, and then, write out that inventory of questions to ask yourself and start there and commit to that for the next week or two? I need to know, what kind of imperfect action taker are you? Hi, Jen. All right, Cindy signing off.